is Maralee Burnett. I am your astrologer, back with the messages for the week of November 17th, which is a power-packed week. If you've been following me, you've been hearing me talk about this new moon for some time, and it is finally here. It's a new moon in the sign of Scorpio, which means rebirth and transformation, and it happens at the same time as Mercury is retrograding and joining with the sun and the moon, which creates a Mercury Cazimi energy. So this is something shocking, mind-blowing, and all of that is going to oppose Uranus in the sign of Taurus at 29 degrees. So there is some financial shocks coming, and you want to make sure you're here for all the details. Of course, that means you probably want to click on that subscribe button so that you are notified whenever I publish new information like this every weekend or every single day through my tarot cards, where I also sprinkle in a little bit of astrology as well. And all of that you can also access at maraleeburnett.com, my website, of course, where you can book sessions with me and get access to all of the written content. So right now, prior to that new moon in Scorpio, go out and read the monthly horoscope for November, see how you've been aligning with the energy, and take a look, of course, at that new moon in Scorpio right up. So you'll get a preview. Now, of course, all of the things that are out there are general forecasts. To know for sure what is going to be happening in your life, you need to understand your birth chart, and you would want to schedule a reading with me. However, you're probably not going to have time to do that because I'm going to be gone for several days leading up to this new moon event. But if you act quickly, you might be able to secure a couple of slots before the new moon actually happens. All right. Also, if you've been following me, you know that each Monday for the past month has been just packed with energy, and this Monday is no different. So let's take a look here at November 17th, of course, in the Astro Gold software, and get the breakdown for the week ahead. So we have been talking about this previously, but there is this huge opportunity with this grand water trine. Now we've got the sun at 25 degrees of Scorpio, right? These are the few days leading up to this new moon, and the sun is shining a light on all the things that are hidden and been kept a secret. And there's some knowledge that we are gaining at this time that we can use to our advantage. So the sun speaks in harmony with Saturn in the sign of Pisces, getting ready to almost finish its retrograde, which will be right at Thanksgiving. That is definitely something I'm going to be thankful for, and I think a lot of you will be too. And those both are speaking in harmony with the third planet in the third water sign, which is Cancer, and that, of course, is Jupiter. That planet just went retrograde on 11/11. So maybe you can think back and already realize what the work is that you are going to experience during this Jupiter retrograde. Now, it is covering the areas of 15 to 25 degrees of the sign of Cancer, and it first passed through here in about the middle of August. So whatever's been coming up for you since last August to November 11, all of that is now coming up for review. Now, Cancer, of course, is about home and family. Jupiter is about the values that we have and how they align with our family or with the people we consider family, maybe where we live. So now's the time to consider what all of that means to us and what we may be willing to do differently to get more aligned. But a grand water trine, which is created by 3 water signs, all in trine or 120 degrees apart from each other, can bring a great amount of success as long as you're tuning into your feelings, trusting your intuition, and doing the work. Now, both Jupiter and Scorpio are teachers. Scorpio's a little harsh with its lessons. Jupiter's a little gentler as long as we're doing the work. But together they are making it very clear that we can't avoid the work any longer. The things that we've been meaning to change, we have to. And then the sun shines a light on what the work is. So these are all working in harmony together somewhere in your chart. And this opportunity is a big part of this new moon in Scorpio, and it's going to continue to be activated over the next week. So this is something we really don't want to let pass us by. Whatever this opportunity is, you have to jump at it. Now, I mentioned information and ideas and things that are coming up, information about the past, information maybe about foreign countries, foreign people, education. Mercury's in retrograde. Now, it has been here since about the 9th of November, coming back through the last few degrees of Sagittarius before it dips into Scorpio again. And that means it's speaking again, like it did last week, in harmony with Pluto. Pluto empowers people who are making big ideas or big offers. And this is reviewing an offer that was made in the past and deciding if you're going to follow through with the big idea, the big opportunity, or not. And whenever you have Pluto on your side, Pluto brings you empowerment. In the sign of Aquarius, it can be power through information, through the internet, through groups, through friends. But someone is helping you achieve a goal that you set for yourself in the past. And it's coming up again as part of this retrograde work. And it'll come up one final time when Mercury finishes its retrograde at the end of November, works its way through Scorpio, and then comes back here again and is still speaking in harmony with Pluto. That may be in the early part of December when we have a final decision and an actual agreement. Does this have to do with what's going on in Congress? What's going on with the budget? Most likely, yes. And I'm guessing we learned something very shocking this week about the money and where it went. But more on that as we get to the Scorpio new moon. So we have Pluto and Mercury retrograde. We have the grand water trine. And the other thing that you've heard me talk about all year long is this yod. And so we have a brief activation today for those of you who have planets at 29 degrees of Libra, 29 degrees of Pisces, and 29 degrees of Taurus specifically. That gives you some mission. Now, especially if this is an angle in your chart or a personal planet, rising sign, descendant, your IC, midheaven, right? Any of those things that sit at 29 degrees, especially in these signs, there is work you have to do to create some emotional balance somewhere in your life. Of course, it's shown wherever you have the 29 degrees of Libra energy and the finger points to the 29 degrees. That's where the big work is. Now, it could be emotional balance in your relationships that you have to create or have to maintain. And the way to do that is through these planets that are sextile to one another. So Uranus in Taurus may mean that in order to come up with this agreement or contract, also a Libra energy, you have to get creative with the finances, right? And you have to create a solution that also cares about the emotional well-being of others. So there is some maybe intense work in, again, the court system, in the Supreme Court. This could have something to do, of course, with a final decision about the SNAP benefits or medical coverage. Something big is going on Monday. There's a big opportunity when you figure out how to come up with an agreement where everybody is happy, or at least feels comfortable because they're meeting in the middle. All right, that is Monday. Just, like usual, just a few little things going on to kick off the week. So let's move ahead to Tuesday. So as we get into Tuesday, not a ton of things are shifting, except that this is the day where we will transition Mercury out of Sagittarius and back into the sign of Scorpio. So as Mercury goes backwards, right, it's stirring things up. It is stirring the pot. And of course, in the underworld, when you have energy that comes through in a different direction, instead of things staying down hidden in the underworld, they are coming to the surface. And as they do, we have to deal with them. So there are going to likely be some real big surprises over the next 11 days as Mercury digs in deep in this Scorpio energy, which, like I said, likes to keep things hidden and secret. So does Pisces with that Neptune energy. And Neptune's also retrograde and at 29 degrees. So it is speaking in harmony with Mercury. And together, in their retrograde motion, they're digging things up. Neptune digs things up for the collective, and Mercury digs them up in our personal lives. And if both of those areas work in harmony, then we can come up with a solution for whatever it is that's being uncovered in a way that can be really positive. However, just like we had some shocks and surprises last week when Mercury was moving through here and opposing Uranus in the sign of Taurus, we have more. But actually, when Mercury came through here, Uranus was still in the sign of Gemini. So this surprise isn't just about information. This surprise has to do with money and finances, and it could be rather shocking. And this is going to be what creates the big explosive surprise that will be a part of the Mercury Cazimi, mind-blowing information that has to do with power and secrets and money and sex. All the Scorpios energy and themes are getting stirred up. And this is money, right? Second house and eighth house, which is Scorpio and Taurus energy, is about the money we make and the money we spend. The money we create ourselves, the money that comes to us from other resources. So there's a lot to be uncovered about money trails. And they're going to shock us. So something starts that conversation today that feels rather uncomfortable. So remember, Mercury's talking with Neptune. What needs to be exposed will be exposed. But it creates conflict. And that conflict, even though Uranus is speaking in harmony with Neptune, they're working together. So it would say to me that this is something that we need to know as the collective, what's happening with the money. Now, in your own life, if it's not money, it can be issues to do with self-worth, things that you value. This can do with material things. So these 3 weeks in particular, I strongly discourage you from making any kind of major financial decisions. Wait till this energy settles down and things move forward again, because it won't go as you expect it to. In fact, you could end up with a shocking larger bill than expected. So wait for any major purchases if at all possible, until this energy clears. And of course, look at your own chart because you'll get more details and more information there as well. So that's Tuesday. Again, this is an intense week. On Wednesday, here we have this moon moving closer to the sun, while Mercury is also moving closer to the sun. So it is throughout the day today that we are building up to the new moon Mercury Cazimi, and we can very much start to feel the unsettling energy, especially because of the fact that Mercury is still opposing that Uranus energy in the sign of Taurus. So it will be very late in the evening on the 19th, very early in the morning on the 20th, that we'll have this new moon that impacts everybody. But on Wednesday in particular, I'm looking at Venus, which does rule money. And if you were listening to me probably a couple of weeks ago, I said, Venus, when she's in the sign of Scorpio, cannot wait to move through here as quickly as possible because it's not where she's comfortable. It's the opposite of her home sign of Taurus is Scorpio. So it's uncomfortable. I called her naked and afraid in the sign of Scorpio because it's just pure raw power versus the tangible physical things that you understand because you can see them, you can taste them, you can touch them, you can feel them, you can hear them even. But none of that exists in Scorpio. It's all about the experience. And Venus doesn't know quite what to do. But today she will, because today Venus's energy for all of us is speaking in harmony with the North and the South node. She's been moving through this area in these few degrees as she speaks in harmony with the North and South node. And that means fate is the one that is creating this transformation as far as money goes, as far as what we love, who we love, how we love them, how we express our love. Remember, Scorpio is about death, rebirth, transformation, burning things to the ground like our fears that no longer serve us so that we can be rebuilt stronger. And so that's the work that's going on throughout the day on Wednesday as we then get ready with that new moon's help to eliminate what no longer serves us so that we can start over. And we are literally, in some cases, burning things down to the ground and starting over. So there is a house in your chart where this big shocking event occurs. And from it, and shocks don't have to be all bad. They can be good, right? It's a shock. It's a surprise that could have something to do with money, potentially, like an inheritance that you weren't expecting. It's just a surprise. So tune in and hope that it is positive for you. It's all going to depend on what else is going on in your chart that's being impacted by this energy. So let's move us ahead to the actual new moon. All right. So if you are on the West Coast, this is, like I said, very late in the evening on Wednesday, November 19th. Pretty much anywhere else, we're already into Thursday, November 20th. So when I post this, I'm just going to timestamp this for like Wednesday, Thursday, our new moon, so that you can easily follow along with this. So as I've been talking about all along, this is when it all comes together. Now, Mercury will be at about 28 degrees, 27 minutes. And the sun and the moon will be together about 28 degrees, 11 minutes. So it's very close. Some people say Mercury Cazimi has to be within 4 minutes. Whatever it is, it's still there. It's still a conjunction, and it is very shocking. And whatever shocks us leads us to start over somewhere in our lives, in our chart, especially if we have planets around 28 degrees anywhere in our chart. There is some aha moment that leads us to this new beginning. And that new beginning, as I mentioned earlier, is a part of this grand water trine. So yes, this is at 28 degrees and Jupiter and Saturn are at 25, but Neptune's also at 29. So they're helping. This is a transition. Jupiter and Saturn are both planets that help us navigate between the personal experience and the collective experience. And there is something going on that is that big, and we need help and we need guides to move us through whatever this gigantic transition is going to be about. But even though there is Uranus in Taurus, shocking us, surprising us, disrupting probably the financial markets, it's needed in order for this transfer of power to be able to happen. We have to understand what's been going on with the money and how money is being manipulated. And then from that understanding, real change can occur. So this isn't something that we aren't aware of, but it may be something that we've been trying to pretend we're not aware of. But now we can't pretend anymore because it will be blatant, it will be obvious, and it will have to be dealt with. But remember, Mercury is still going to be retrograde for 10 more days. So whatever the shock and awe event is, we have the next 10 days to somewhat recover from it before we understand what to do, how to do it, and how to move forward because of it. So that is the basis for this new moon, the disruption, but a beautiful opportunity that will be the result of it. So I will do the breakdown by sign at the end of this video. So we're going to move this ahead to Friday, and we are going to just look at the energy for the rest of the weekend, and then I'll stop and do the breakdown for every sign. So you can watch the daily if this is taking too long, and then come back and watch the new moon part later, whatever works for you. So here we go. As we move forward into Friday, we will see that the sun is going to move into the sign of Sagittarius. So Scorpio season, for the most part, is coming to an end, but we still have Venus and, as I mentioned, Mercury that have to finish their time here. So we still have another 10 days or so before real Scorpio season is over, but the intensity will lighten up because that's what Sagittarius energy is. It's light. It's positive. It is being able to have faith and understanding our way forward. And that's what the sun is going to invite us to accept and see, is that there is a way forward from whatever this dramatic event was. And we have to remain faithful for it to completely unfold. And so, of course, the sun will be here for the next month. So just like everything else, this is going to take time for it to fully unfold for all of us. So we see that. And of course, as the sun is here, it's still in its opposition with Uranus. So those Thursday, Friday, the energy is still intense, but that intensity changes here in a way when the sun moves into the sign of Sagittarius. The opposition comes from outside. Could be foreign countries who are a part of whatever this conflict is, for instance. As the sun moves through here, it is also going to continue to speak in harmony with Neptune. So again, foreign people, foreign places, spiritual leaders and guides, we're working together to come up with a solution for whatever the problem is that has presented itself. So that is Friday, so remain hopeful. And then we move it back into Saturday with 11 and 22 being numbers that are master numbers, right? And 22 being a master builder number, 11, that number of light. So there's something we're building at this time. So on Saturday, the Grand Water Trine gets activated again, this time by Mercury, of course, still retrograde. And once again, like it did on the way forward, is speaking in harmony with Jupiter and Saturn. So there is something that was already shown to you. Maybe you didn't believe it. Maybe it felt too good to be true. But now, as Saturn and Jupiter and Mercury are collaborating, you're starting to be able to put all the pieces together and understand how to take this idea and do something really positive with it. Now, it's not a brand new idea. You already have come up with this, or somebody presented it to you, but now you're ready to move forward with it in some way. And then as we move forward, we are going to see on Sunday, Mercury gave us the ideas. Now it's Mars's turn, as it's been comfortably moving forward in the sign of Sagittarius, to give us the action to take. Now remember, Mars is a warrior. Mars in Sagittarius could be a warrior that is taking off somewhere. If you have family in the military, they could be traveling overseas at this time. If you just have a vacation plan and it's overseas, you could be going at this time. But wherever you're going, most importantly, wherever you're being led or guided, it's fated. Because, of course, Mars is squaring the South Node in Virgo, and it's squaring the North Node in Pisces. And a square means we have to take action and make a significant change in direction. And again, that Sagittarius energy is foreign people, foreign places. It's our knowledge. It's our ideals. It is important spiritual leaders that could be changing roles in some way. And of course, Mars is a warrior. So there could be a change in direction in a particular conflict that's been going on in a foreign country. But just know whatever's going on all this week truly is guided by fate. The changes that are going on right now are necessary and guided by fate. And we have to continue to have faith that in the end, everything will work out for the best. So that is where we end up with Mars. We also see Mercury in Scorpio making that odd connection back to Chiron. Now, this can be a leader who's in ill health. This could be information coming up about the death of a leader or somebody in a leadership role, the illness of a leader, but it's awkward, it's uncomfortable. Whatever is coming up now is not easy, but it's necessary. And if we deal with this information that's being exposed, it actually may help some victims heal. So we'll see what we hear about some files maybe as we get to the weekend, and how that information coming out may actually help some people heal. All right, there's a lot going on, and if you want to make sure you didn't miss any details here, of course you can watch it again. You can also go out and read the write-up that I did, because sometimes I pick up a few other connections in the day-to-day breakdown that I don't necessarily get to in these videos because of time. So make sure you're out at my website, maraleeburnett.com. You pull down that November monthly forecast and take a look at all the details there as well to make sure that you're fully prepared for a very crazy and chaotic week ahead. Now, speaking of the week ahead, before we get into the new moon breakdown, of course, next week we have Thanksgiving. But what I'm most excited about as we get into next week is the fact that Saturn will be slowing down and ending its retrograde. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. And then happy end of Saturn retrograde, which we're all going to, I think, celebrate, because this has been a pretty difficult and intense 3-year period that we've been dealing with a lot of endings, a lot of death, a lot of release, because of course the 12th house is our connection to the spirit world. It is hospitals, it is endings, it's the last sign, it's health, it's spiritual well-being. There's so much that we've been working on depending on our individual charts, and now it's the time to prove we've done the work. And the good news is with Saturn, when you do prove that you've been doing the work, that's when the rewards finally show up. So this is it. This is your final work. It's time to show your results to Saturn and receive your grade. And the grading period starts on Friday, November 28th. So we'll break down the rest of the week, of course, day by day as we get through it, and celebrate Thanksgiving, and then really celebrate this Saturn energy moving forward again. All right, so I've taken us back in time to November 19th, which is the new moon in the sign of Scorpio, Mercury retrograde Cazimi, and there is something that may blow our minds, and we have to face some opposition before we can start over, start something fresh and new. So I'm going to talk through that for each sign. Where's the opposition coming in? But I'm not going to go over the grand water trine. That gets way too complicated. I'm not going to go over the fact that Uranus is speaking in harmony with Neptune, and Neptune's part of the grand water trine. We've talked through those things. That's something that you would need to do a reading with me in order to get into all of the detail. But just know, whatever this opposition is, whatever this challenge is for you, when you learn how to deal with the challenge in a healthy, positive way, that's where the opportunity will present itself to you. And there is opportunity. There is a silver lining. So have faith. Remember, that sun's going to head into Sagittarius, and that's where the faith is going to come up bigger. But just know this challenge is purposeful. And as we manage through it, manage our fear, because this is Scorpio, we will understand the lesson. And especially for those of you, like I said, if you have energy at 28 degrees or your birthday is on this day, you have some major changes coming in your life, and you really have to just be ready to let whatever this is go so that you can start something new. But it's something based on the past because of the fact that Scorpio is retrograde. How that plays out for each of you depends on what house this is happening in. And of course, these are general readings. I don't know your houses specifically, but this will help guide you. And if you know your chart, then you know where you have 28 degrees of Scorpio, and that's the house you should listen to regardless of what I call out based on sign. All right, so let's start with Aries. So Aries, all the things I've been talking about always apply to you, so you get extra reading as we do this. It's the 8th house for you, so that means the financial houses for Aries and for Libra, right? Because they're going to have the opposite of this, are getting a lot of work. So 8th house topics, this is where your new beginning happens, means that you Aries are going to experience some kind of financial shakeup, financial challenge. But as you work your way through it, then you'll get more aligned and have a better appreciation for the value of money. So this is overall a challenge between the money you make and the money you owe, the money you make and the debts that you take on. And if you've been challenged, as Uranus has moved back here, which has been here since November 7th at this 29 degree point, then today you may realize how to bring this challenge to an end and how to create a source of income that you need to, let's say, go to school, for instance, because Mercury in the sign of Scorpio could be somebody who is going to school to do something in a healing, maybe psychology, maybe something in forensics, something in intelligence, right? Secrets. All of those things could play into this area of your life. So feel into the pressure, but don't buckle. Just be aware that if you're being too fearful when it comes to money, you'll create more problems for yourself. But if you can have trust, you have faith, and you can be respectful of money, then that's where this new opportunity will present itself for you, Aries. But this isn't about being petty. This is about letting all of the conflict go as far as money is in your life so that you can start over. Whatever, this could be a personal conflict with others, because the 8th house is other people that you have over money. And it's time to let this conflict go. All right. Aries, that was sun, moon, or rising sign. That's the work that you're here to do. Now, as we move to Taurus, and Taurus, I'm sorry, but you still have to work with this Uranus energy a little bit longer, but then it'll be gone and it won't come back for quite some time because it takes 84 years for Uranus to make its way through the zodiac. So you're almost done, but the work does carry into next year as we get ourselves aligned with what it is that we really want and what we really value. And so for you, Taurus, that has to do with relationships, because this is the 7th house. This is about marriage. This can be about business partners and business contracts. And in order for there to be a fresh start in your marriage, you need to get honest. You may need to get clear on why you're not communicating with one another. Maybe you need to clear the air because of some miscommunication. There could be secrets that have been coming to the surface about your marriage partner and the relationship. And the opposition, right? If you're Taurus, Uranus is you. And you've been shocking and surprising everyone around you because maybe you've been a little erratic and maybe your partner hasn't been comfortable with the changes that you've been making, and it's been putting strain on the marriage. You've been needing to break free from anything that you feel like doesn't align with you anymore. But you may have been shooting yourself in the foot along the way, and perhaps ended some relationships that you shouldn't have. And now, as Mercury comes back, you have a chance to think this through again. You have a chance to balance what's important to you and what's important to your partner. And when you can meet in the middle, then the two of you can start over again. Now, because the shock and surprise comes in your 7th house, it could be your business partner or your marriage partner is the one who shocks and surprises you by coming to tell you a secret about themselves that could tear your marriage apart, or you could let it bring you closer together. So remember, whatever happens, whatever disruption there is between what you want and what your partner wants, there's an opportunity that appears when you figure out how to meet in the middle. All right. Next, we have Gemini. So Gemini, this is a shocking, surprising opportunity in your 6th house of the work that you do. It also could be your health, right? This is energy that's a part of your day-to-day life. Sometimes it could involve a pet. If it's not work, it could be work that you do as far as a volunteer, like being of service to other people. So this is a shocking, surprising new beginning. If we're talking health, for instance, the 6th house is your health, and the 12th house would be hospitals and institutions. If we're talking about mental health, same thing. We need to get healthy in what we do on a day-to-day basis in order to improve our mental health. Our mental health, if we don't deal with it, is making us unhealthy as well. So it's learning to balance the physical and the mental realms. Now, as far as work goes, this could be a shocking change of assignment and location. You may have to suddenly move, even if it's temporary, for your job, and you may be going back somewhere that you've been in the past. You may, for some, be going back to school in order to, let's say you were let go, and now, because of that, going back to school becomes a priority for you. And then it's just a matter of figuring out the challenges of going back to school, 12th house, large institutions, and where you're at, where you live. Do you have to move? It's just all the logistics between the 6th house and the 12th house that you have to figure out in order to make this all work for you. But remember, once you figure out the balance between our mental health, our physical health, that's when the beautiful big opportunity will present itself to you. So do the work. And if you are suddenly changing roles, changing positions, changing locations because of work, just go with it. Even though it may be challenging to do it, trust that there is a reason, and more will unfold shortly. All right, Cancers. You have been doing a lot of work and it's felt heavy. In fact, some of you may be heavier because when we have the sign of Jupiter in, especially like our 1st house on our sun, it can literally make our bodies heavier. You'd have to go back and look at 2013, 2014 and see if that was the story for you. Jupiter expands on what it touches so that we become more aware of our health, for instance. So now that Jupiter is slowing down and going retrograde, if your health has been an issue for you, then you're going to want to start to deal with it. If, for instance, your heart, because this is the 5th house, has some issues, then now you'll want to go and deal with them. So the new beginning in your 5th house can be shocks and surprises that have to do with your children. It could have to do with your children's children. This is maybe a hobby that suddenly takes off that you weren't expecting it to. And so when our hobbies are growing, the challenge comes from our friend group because we're suddenly off and doing what we love, what we're passionate about, and we're very focused on I versus the we energy of the 11th house of those friends, those networking groups. So there's something that you desire, something that you want and you love, maybe a new relationship. Maybe somebody from the past comes back and expresses their feelings for you shockingly and out of the blue. Now, I will tell you that you have to slow down and really make sure it's true, right? Because with Mercury retrograde and Jupiter retrograde and our romance sector being activated, now it can bring somebody from a past life into your circle, but you'll really want to take time and make sure you're learning the lessons that you've needed to learn prior to this person showing up instead of repeating patterns. So this will be a long game until next March, where you're realizing what matters most to you, especially in the love department. So it's not a quick, let's get married tomorrow kind of energy. It's let's see if I can make room for love energy and lesson. And as you learn that, prioritizing what you need versus what your friends need, there'll be a pretty cool opportunity that shows up for both of you that will allow you to be independent of one another and yet maybe work on this pretty great, emotionally fulfilling opportunity that appears. So, lots of work for you, Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising because of Jupiter going retrograde until March 11th. Get ready to dig in and do the healing work. And then next year's really going to feel different for you once Jupiter starts moving forward, and especially once it gets into Leo. And speaking of Leos, this is a shocking, surprising new beginning that happens in your fourth house. So the fourth house is home, it's family, it's ancestors. And since it's a shocking surprise, some of you, if you were at this 28 degrees in particular, may be moving unexpectedly. Some of you becoming a mother unexpectedly. Something may be happening or changing with your mother unexpectedly because of this energy. Now, there's also the need to balance home and career because that surprising energy shows up for you with Uranus in your 10th house. And remember, both sides are surprises. Mercury Cazimi is a surprise, and Uranus in Taurus is a surprise. So, which surprise is going to throw you off your game the most? Is it suddenly you're moving because of a work opportunity? Suddenly you're moving because you've lost a work opportunity? What is that? And is there something that happens at home that makes you realize you're spending too much time at work? All kinds of ways that this could show up for you. Is it that you get recognition for a job well done at work, 10th house, Uranus, and now you can afford the home that you've always dreamed of? Moving is always a challenge, even if it's for a good thing, right? Maybe it's moving back home for some of you because of the fact that Mercury is going retrograde. But if that's the case, it's probably just temporary. So don't freak out about it. Remember, if you were to go home, there's an opportunity that presents itself to you. All right. And then we're moving ahead to Virgo. Virgo, this is in your third house. This is a new beginning that probably involves some shocking information that comes to the surface for you because, of course, the third house is our community. It's communication. It could be shocks and surprises that involve your vehicle because it's transportation, right? Third house is ruled by Mercury and Mercury's retrograde. So I'm just going to say on this day, if you have to travel, that you just take it easy and slow and don't try to rush anywhere. You'll be trying to get a new car during Mercury retrograde, which I do not recommend unless you really, really have to. But there's some information, some conversation that you have with somebody from the past, maybe somebody even from grade school, right? This is going way back to your younger days. And whatever you're learning, it's challenging what you thought you knew, right? Because Uranus is in your 9th house, that house of higher education, of growth and expansion. And it can invite big opportunities, but then that means you have to change the position that you hold currently within your community, and that could feel really unsettling too. So maybe if that's the case, maybe you have to move far away from where your current community is, and you'll be able to figure out a way to set up time to still come back and visit at regular intervals. So it's a balance between what's local, what's far away, what you know, what you need to learn. You just have to be open. You have to open your mind and be open to listening to whatever's showing up for you at this time that is going to change everything you thought you knew and you thought you understood. But it's a good thing, because now once you know the truth, then you can make good decisions. And then that's where this beautiful opportunity will show up for you. All right. Then we have Libra. So I mentioned earlier, because now we're on the second half of the zodiac wheel here. And that means the opposite of everything that we talked about for your opposing sign is your story. And so this for you, Libras, is a new beginning in your second house, which does rule the money that you make. So there is some shocking surprise that is being told to you about your job, if you have one. There's some shocking surprise about your investments, if that's your income stream. There's something based on past decisions that you've made that are disrupting the money you make in some way. And it could be your partner, because that Uranus energy is in the 8th house and that represents their money, is having something shocking happen to their finances. And because of that, it's affecting your finances. And so now we have to figure out, what is our new budget going to look like because of this disruption? But keep in mind, I do think this disruption is somewhat temporary. So we don't want to panic when it comes to finances. We literally want to pause. This is that moment, I always say, on the teeter-totter, where we learn to just come to the middle and just breathe until we understand all of the details, all of the information, which again, I don't think we'll know until around the 29th of November, when Mercury stations to go direct. And then if we have to make any financial decisions or choices, we could do so at that time. But just know there can be some difficulties in your finances, some shocking surprises. Now, maybe it's great. It doesn't have to be a bad surprise. Maybe your spouse inherited some money, or your spouse wins the lottery and you've always been the breadwinner and suddenly you don't understand your role because you're not the one that's taking care of everybody. There can be all kinds of implications when it comes to money, but it is definitely about cash flow and figuring out how to balance it after we know what we know. I know, it's so secretive. That's because it's Scorpio. Speaking of Scorpios, of course, you may start to shock everybody around you based on the changes you're about to make, because this is in your first house. This is how other people see you. Now, this might be you suddenly going from blonde to redhead, right? You just may go through some very dramatic change, especially if you're a Scorpio, around these 28 degrees. So sun, moon, or rising in this 28 degree area of the sign of Scorpio, you're going to feel this the most. You are going to feel drawn to making dramatic changes. But keep in mind, these changes are not going to be easy on your partner because the shocks and surprises come from that seventh house of your marriage partner, of your business partner, of even really close friends. So there's something disruptive between you and somebody else. You're at war a bit with one another, and you could be at war about money, but you need to get out of your ego. That's conflict is always ego driven, and focus on the information, focus on the details that are coming up from the past, and sit down and learn how to meet in the middle. This is not a time for digging in. It's not time for escalating conflicts. It's the time for de-escalation and maybe even a mediator. Because when you guys realize how to meet in the middle, that's where the beautiful opportunity energy presents itself. But not if you're at war, right? This grand water trine, if you're at war with one another, if you're being distracted by this Uranus energy, you're missing out on what the opportunity is. So don't do that. But definitely be ready, late degree Scorpios, for some shocking changes. And if you want to sit and look at your chart with me, I recommend it because it's nothing that you've seen before. This is completely surprising, but I've been giving clues the last several weeks and moments where I think you've needed to sit and understand what's been going on. But remember, because when Mercury was moving forward, something may have happened and it was kind of hidden and secretive. And now that it's coming back, you'll be able to go, oh, that's what was going on that day that I didn't know, but I kind of felt it. And now that I know, I have to do something different, something dramatically different in how other people see you. You're no longer going to be afraid. You're going to be willing to take charge of whatever this information is and do something positive with it that changes you and how other people see you going forward. Just, little intensity, Scorpio. You're good with that. And then we move to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, this is a shocking new beginning that happens in your 12th house. Now, the 12th house rules the subconscious mind. Of course, it rules hospitals. It rules large institutions. You could suddenly find yourself in a hospital. If you work in a hospital, there could be sudden changes, sudden hierarchy changes that are going on that changes your position. Now, this is also mental health. So this is the time where if you're feeling under stress, under pressure, that you ask for help and deal with whatever's disrupting your mental health. Because if you don't, then the shocking surprise comes from your 6th house. So it can be a shock and a surprise about the work you do. It can be a shock and surprise about your health. It could be a shock and surprise about the money that you make at work. So there's changes that could be coming maybe to the hospital that you work in. So lots of things to do with money and work and hospitals or large institutions that are going to put you under a lot of stress, and that stress could affect your mental health. So you need to really take it easy over these several days until you see the whole story. So don't overreact. When you hear the rumors, let everything unfold, and by the end of the month, you'll have a clear idea of what your future will look like. But it is going to change. But you have faith. So I know you'll be comfortable with where this new direction is taking you, but just guard your health. And again, things that come up from your subconscious mind could shock you. Things that you've been keeping hidden and buried forever could totally surprise you now and cause you to want to make some changes in your day-to-day life that could shock everybody around you, like quitting your job suddenly. So don't do that until you know the whole story. Give it some time to completely unfold. All right. And then we have Capricorns. Capricorns, this for you is in your 11th house. So this is your friends, your networking groups, where a friend could shock and surprise you, or part of your work team, some new assignment, some new information, some restructuring could suddenly happen, and nothing looks like it did at work for you anymore, and it will make you feel very uncomfortable. So the new shocking beginning or information comes to you from a friend, then challenges your relationship with your children in some way. So again, you could be somebody who gets a reassignment that would take you away from home a lot more, and that would make it difficult on your relationship with your children. And so you would need to figure out how this is going to work, but wait until you have all of the answers before you panic, before you quit because you refuse to be away from your children. Let all the dust settle, and then you'll figure out a way for this to work for everyone involved. And if it's not your children, it could be the person you're in a relationship with, right? And maybe they have children and you needing to move, but they can't. Then you have a long distance relationship. Oh my God, there's conflict. Blah, blah, blah. But just remember, once you guys figure out how to do this, that's where this really beautiful opportunity shows up unexpectedly as well. So be patient. I know you don't like change, Capricorn. Change is coming. And then we have Aquarius. Now, Aquarius, this is a shocking surprise, new beginning that has everything to do with your career. 10th house is status, it's reputation, it's what you're most known for. So if you have a famous partner, for instance, and that's what you're most known for, then they're going to shock and surprise you. But something that you're known for, or people know you for, is changing. And this new beginning, again, is maybe based on something that you've done in the past. It's maybe based on something that you've learned in the past, or where you've physically been in the past, that brings this new opportunity to you. And it could affect where you live, even temporarily, because of the fact that that Uranus energy stirring things up and surprising you is coming at you from the 4th house of home. Or this new assignment, again, could unsettle your family life. Now, again, it could mean moving. The family may have to move. There's a lot of chaos involved because of it. But once you commit to accepting the change and then making the plans to move forward, then it's going to turn out better than you ever expected. But remember, everything that we're doing, we have to let the full story unfold through the end of the month before we make any drastic changes anyway. So just hang in there. But change is most likely coming in the work that you do. And it's definitely going to surprise you. And finally, we have Pisces. So Pisces, this is in your 9th house. The 9th house, it rules growth and expansion. It can rule the energy of our mentors, our spiritual teachers. And of course, you've heard me said it also has to do with foreign people, foreign places, foreign countries, foreign languages. So it's knowledge, it's growth opportunities that will shock and surprise you at this time. It could be an offer that, again, maybe causes you to work in a different location, because the 3rd house where this unsettling event happens that's financial in nature is the 3rd house of your local community, your close-knit, family members that you're a part of. Suddenly things are shifting in those relationships that could affect your ability to take on this new opportunity. But trust the process. Say yes, and then let the dust settle, and then you'll know how your new community will come together and support you like your old one did, so that you can make this change and take on this new, bigger opportunity. All right. That's everybody. Again, because these events are shocking and surprising and unexpected, I almost hesitate to even put any kind of prediction out there, because we won't know. is so unstable, the energy. And remember, Uranus is a lightning bolt. So it could suddenly change direction and you think it's going one way and suddenly it goes the other. So that's why I've been saying throughout this, you gotta wait for the whole picture to unfold, which we will see throughout this week and next as Mercury keeps moving after its rebirth, after its Cazimi moment, as it's bathed through the fire of the sun. We have to give it a few days to see clearly what our new reality is going to look like. But it's definitely going to look different in some area of your life, especially those with planets, I would say between 25 and 28 degrees intensely. Of course, 29, 0 of the next sign, still some influence, but really those of you in this 28 degrees are going to see, feel, experience the disruption significantly enough that this is one of those years that you look back on and say, everything changed that year, especially in November. As a collective, we are going to say, everything changed that year in November. And then we get to start over fresh and new. All right, guys, definitely keep me updated with your experiences, what's going on this week, and I love your comments. I love your feedback, whether it's through my TikTok on the dailies, the YouTube video shorts, here on the long form, wherever it is. I love hearing your feedback, so keep me updated. I'm always your biggest cheerleader and here to support you through the change. But remember, it's just change. And all the shocks and surprises that have ever happened in your life in the past, you've got through them. Even the good ones, right? So just be open to change. Change is good. That was always been my mantra. And that might be a really good one to be saying over these next several weeks. All right, guys, we will talk again next week when we have a little less crazy to go over and instead start to see the Saturn work pay off for us as it stations to go direct right after Thanksgiving. And I'm telling you, that's a great thing to be giving thanks for. All right, guys, I'll talk with you soon. Take care.